the current Northern Ireland Secretary, and the former Chief Whip, Chris Heaton Harris, who joins us now. Thank you very much for being with us. So you're backing Boris Johnson. Just explain to us why.
Because he's a vote winner. He's got a mandate from the last general election. And I know from the reaction that a number of my friends who are MPs who went out canvassing yesterday got on the doorstep that he is still a vote winner today. He's the one person Labour fears.
I'm really happy to have you on the programme because, I know that you are close to Boris Johnson. You served as his chief whip. You delivered him the difficult news last time when you told him that you believed the game was up. So I feel, if anyone's going to know where his head is at, maybe you can help us on that. Is he really going to run?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I really am calling for him to run. I'm trying to work out the numbers, and I think the numbers are actually, Sophie, we do have the numbers, just so you know. Everybody's speculating, but the Rishi camp knows we have the numbers, the Penny camp knows we have the numbers. So that's not an issue. And this is a time when we need a big player like Boris in our politics. So I think he will.
You say that you have the numbers, over 100 MPs. That's what we've been briefed as well. But obviously the declared backers are much, much lower than that. So, we just have to take your word for it. Is it a bit like saying, I have got a girlfriend, but you wouldn't know her, she goes to a different school?
No, I mean, so the one thing I was relatively good at as Chief Whip was numbers. And we definitely have enough numbers to get we've already booked the appointment with Bob Blackman, the Secretary of the 1922 tomorrow. So, yeah, we've got the numbers.
Why are they so shy at being named then?
I'm not sure they're particularly shy. I mean, there's some people who are in government positions and there are some people who might be whips or on the 22 executive or in positions where they don't want to come forward, but they don't have to. I mean, only 2 people actually have to be named on the nomination paper, and in the votes, it's a secret ballot. So I guess you could say a secret ballot is part of democracy, and nominations similarly.
The reason I'm asking about the numbers is because obviously he hasn't declared yet. We haven't got 100 public backers. I'm just trying to work out the seriousness of this leadership campaign. He's kind of flown back dramatically from the Caribbean. He's called up James Duddridge, his ally, saying, "I'm up for it, Dudders," in sort of typical exuberant form. But, I can't work out exactly who his campaign team is, whether he's going to declare, who the 100 backers are. Are we all kind of falling into, the great Boris Johnson soap opera again? I mean, have you spoken to him?
Yeah, I've spoken to him, and I think at this point in time, he's keen to see what the parliamentary party thinks. He is actually a great unifier. He is a great campaigner, and he is someone who has a solid sense of what the country wants to hear and what the country needs to happen. So. Yeah, I mean, he flew back yesterday. To be quite frank, none of us expected this to happen at all. It was one of those weird. I've had plenty of weird times in my recent political career, but it was one of those very weird moments this week where I did not expect Liz Truss to resign on Thursday. So lots has happened in a very short period of time, and the fact that we've got the numbers after such a short period of time with no campaign, with very little organisation, and realistically just a few people calling around demonstrates to me the support for Boris Johnson that's in the parliamentary party. Also demonstrates to me the amount of email and social media traffic that we're all getting now demonstrates to me that he's really popular in the country too.
He had talks with Rishi Sunak last night. Everyone's been very tight-lipped about what's happened. We don't know what happened. You say that you've spoken to him. Do you have any steer on what did actually go on last night?
I know they had talks, but you'll have to forgive me. I was doing something a bit more social with a nephew's 21st birthday last night. So I feel like I got up a bit early just to be on here, Sophie, because I had a very good fun time with my nephew last night.
OK, well, we appreciate the early alarm in that situation. Do you think if Rishi Sunak offered him a job in his cabinet that Boris Johnson would accept it, or is he only interested in the top job?
No, I mean, to answer your question seriously, the last question seriously, I mean, I was really pleased that they had talks. I honestly don't know what transpired from those talks, and I will be speaking to Boris quite shortly. And I'd like to, these things, I think it's really important that the party unifies and comes together. And I really do think it's important that the country gets the message that we are serious about governing and we are serious about sorting out the economic situation we find ourselves in that has changed so dramatically in such a short period of time, that we're serious about dealing with the international factors that contribute to that, that we have a leader that's going to be unbelievably strong when it comes to supporting Ukraine and facing down Putin, that we have an understanding of the economic situation we find ourselves in. And so, yeah, I want those talks between Rishi and Boris to continue, because I think, and indeed to involve Penny, because these are all big players in our future. And if they came together, I think it would be a dramatic turn for the better for us all.
You're talking about Boris Johnson being an election winner. You talk about his action on Ukraine. You could talk about his understanding of the economic situation. And I really want to ask the question that I actually think is really important, because we get sucked into all this drama. What actually is the economic strategy that Boris Johnson is running on? Because I don't know. What is it?
Well, I mean, to be frank, we've only been working at a campaign for 24 hours. As a member of the government, I don't think the economic strategy can change much, because we need to make sure that our economy is completely stable. So, currently, Jeremy Hunt is the Chancellor of the Exchequer, and Ed Argar, the Chief Secretary of the Treasury, are working on an economic plan for the medium term. And I'm quite sure that all the candidates will want to commit to something like that, because that's what we want to make sure that we have a stable economy to build forward on.
So will Boris Johnson commit to the Jeremy Hunt plan? Because it feels quite important, if you're going to back him, say he should be the next Prime Minister, to know.
Yeah, he wants. Boris absolutely wants a stable financial and economic background for the country to move forward on. And to me, and obviously we don't know what, as a campaign team that's only been formed 24 hours and been making telephone calls, we've not had privy information as to what that might look like, and nor should we have. But as a member of the government, I think Jeremy Hunt's plan is probably the best one in town.
You should know, though, shouldn't you? If you're going around calling people, asking them to put their faith in Boris, you should know exactly what his economic plan is, shouldn't you? I mean, the Bank of England had to step in to stop a run on pension funds recently. Yeah,
and the economic plan that will be based on stability for the economy. But as I say, the only plan that's being worked on currently, with all the detail that you need to have an economic plan, is the one that Jeremy Hunt's working on now.
OK. I want to talk a little bit more about what a Boris premiership could mean. We had Steve Baker on the programme at the beginning of the show. He's backing Rishi Sunak. He said that it would be a disaster if Boris Johnson would be Prime Minister because of the Privileges Committee. He said he couldn't rule out voting against the Prime Minister if he felt that he had misled Parliament. He said that other Conservative MPs would be in the same situation. At a time when the country is in the situation that it is, after all that the Conservative Party have put it through over the last couple of months, is it really responsible to put in power someone who could end up being found guilty of misleading Parliament and suspended from Parliament as a result?
Yeah, I mean, let's put all this into some context. So, firstly, Boris was happy for the Privileges Committee investigation to be set up. Conservative Party MPs did not have to vote on that. Secondly, he's he's been working over the summer. He's absolutely sure that he's going to be exonerated. Thirdly, we are very happy for the Privileges Committee to continue its work. He wants the Privileges Committee to continue its work because he believes he will be exonerated, as do I. And then fourthly, I don't know what this vote is that people are talking about immediately as we get back. Privileges Committee has not started its work properly yet. There's a long way to go. Evidence will be taken. I'm sure there'll be one or two press columns written about it, and I'm sure, Sophie, you'll have some time on your show dedicated to it. But only if the Privileges Committee were to find him in some way in error would there be any worry about a penalty at all. And I don't believe that will be the case. So you're talking, I think, about many, many months down the line that it's just a theoretical possibility.
We can't, just underplay the importance of this, though, can we, as well? Boris Johnson
No.
quit when his own MPs lost confidence in him. He was the only serving Prime Minister to have been found to have broken the law. People like William Hague, for example, saying on Friday he risks sending the party into a death spiral. Is he really the answer to the problems the Conservative Party now faces?
Well, there's polling today that suggests very strongly that he is. Without any campaigning, just flying back from the Dominican Republic, there's polling that suggests that he pulls us back within 26 seats if there was a general election called tomorrow of Labour, and that's without him saying a single
according to
word.
that polling.
So yeah, according to that polling. So Boris Johnson is unbelievably popular with the public. He can connect with the public like a few other politicians of my generation, and I doubt we'll see anyone like him again. He has a mandate with the British people. He won the 2019 election with a massive 80-seat majority, unheard of since the times of Margaret Thatcher and Tony Blair. And this is a man who actually does know how to govern, who can govern, and given the chance, would happily govern again.
Things were very different back in 2019, though, as I'm sure you will admit, when Boris Johnson did win that election, not just because he was up against Jeremy Corbyn as well. Boris Johnson actually only had positive approval ratings for a few months. By January this year, they were minus 52. That's lower than Theresa May or David Cameron ever got. That's why your colleagues got rid of him.
We were 4 or 5 points behind in the polls as well, but. I'd like to think when you get to a general election, everybody's mind concentrates on first of all what's best for the country, and indeed what sort of prime minister they would like. Now, Boris Johnson has demonstrated that he can touch like the Heineken of British politics. His popularity can touch anywhere in the country whatsoever. He can get absolutely anywhere, get votes from anywhere. He is still that popular now. He can demonstrate to the parliamentary party. He's a man that everybody wants to talk to. He's a man that lights up a room when he comes into it. So yeah, he can pull this around, and he has already a track record of delivery on Brexit, on COVID, on dealing with the first ramifications that flowed from Putin's illegal invasion of Ukraine. So there's a whole host of things, delivery and indeed hope for the future, that Boris gives us.
Would you like to see him offer the chancellorship to Rishi Sunak if he does make it?
I'd very much like the two of them, and as I say, Penny as well, because I think Penny's got is a great talent, and we have got some amazing talents in our party. I'd like to see everybody work together so we can move on from the position we're in now.
Jacob Rees-Mogg's been pictured with the slogan "Boris or bust." That doesn't sound like someone who is working together, does it?
Yeah, but I've got to say, our mini campaign does not have an official slogan or anything like that. So that was just something someone else had mocked up. Jacob used it. I think that's a bit unfortunate, personally, but it's just you can't stop people being enthusiastic about Boris.
OK, and now I want to ask you a question with your Northern Ireland hat on. You're obviously the Secretary of State for Northern Ireland, and you've said that there will be an election triggered if the Assembly there doesn't manage to get up and running. You, of course, are currently a Secretary of State for Northern Ireland. That could change in a couple of days' time. Whoever is in that job, what do you think we need to see now?
So the election would be called because actually it's a legal requirement. It's primary legislation that if 6 months passes without an executive reforming for the Northern Ireland Assembly after the previous election, then an election has to be called. So it's actually a legal requirement to call it at 1 minute past midnight on the 28th of October. And so whoever sits in the seat of the Northern Ireland Secretary at that time, and I truly hope it's me, but who knows, you will be in that position. So the Democratic Unionist Party have got an opportunity to come back in. It's really important, actually, that I think that they do, because there's so many domestic issues in Northern Ireland that would be helped by their re-entry into the executive. And they've got some really talented politicians themselves who can help sort those issues out. So there is a choice that people can make to stop there being an election, but it's got to be made by elected representatives of Northern Ireland going back into that assembly. So without that, the Secretary of State for Northern Ireland would have to call an election this week.
And just finally, while I've got you, why was Boris Johnson on holiday when Parliament was sitting?
Well, it would have been slipped. So yeah. I think you'll find a number. We've got a couple of former prime ministers now sitting on the backbenches, and because they are truly big beasts in our parliamentary system, as a chief whip, if one of them asked you if they could have some time off to do something, you'd normally say yes.
What does slip mean? You mean he would have got permission to go off on a nice holiday?
Yes, you get permission to go away.
Okay.
So we get
permission
to go campaigning, that sort of thing. Yeah.
Permission to go on holiday is usual then.
It's a thing.
Okay. All right. Chris Heaton Harris, thank you very much for being on the programme today.